everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. Happy New Year to those of you who are just joining us. You know, it's been a little while, but I'm excited because a new year, even though it's just a calendar thing, it's always like a new start. And it's always a couple weeks in when it's like, okay, am I still committed to those things that I said I was going to do? But anyway, just a thought. My guest today, I'm excited to speak with because he and we look at health and wellness the same way. It's like it's a whole thing. You can't miss one part. You got to have it all in order to be truly healthy. So I think he's a perfect guest for right about now because all those of us who are starting to wane in our commitments, here we go. So without further ado, let me introduce Alan Lazaros. Hello.
Way to bring the energy. I love it. You brought the energy. I'm excited. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. You know, it is a new year, and right around now, people are starting to be like, all of a sudden, you know, that enthusiasm that we talk about is starting to wear off. And so, you know, I'm excited because, as I mentioned, you and we think a lot the same as far as health and wellness. So I would love for you to share a bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
All right. So a bit about myself. So I'm 33 years old. I like to start there. I did not always take my health and fitness as seriously as I do today. I grew up in an environment that did have a pleasure-centered paradigm of a lot of partying and alcohol and stuff like that, and partied in high school, partied a bit in college, did really well in high school and in college, but then also I went into corporate and I ended up in corporate sales, and there was a work hard, play hard mentality there as well. 26 years old, I got in a bad car accident. Fortunately, I was okay. But after that, I really decided to take my health and fitness really, really seriously. After that, to say that I went all in on holistic self-improvement and wellness is like an understatement at this point. I literally went from 160-pound sort of skinny fat to ended up being a fitness competitor, a fitness model for a time, and a fitness coach. So my entire world revolved around fitness for a long time. And now it's all about physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development from a holistic perspective. And that's really what our podcast and what I do daily is. Now I'm a business coach and consultant, but as you know, the bottom of the pyramid of everything that you build is your wellness. And that all starts with your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
No, I love that too. And I love that you mentioned too that you were thin but fat because that was me. I was a tiny fat person.
Same.
It was disturbing. When I found out like how much of my body was fat, I was horrified. So I was still pretty tiny. But anyway, I didn't actually want to talk about that, but I just wanted to point that out that is a thing. It is real. And just because you look okay doesn't necessarily mean that you're at your peak. So something that you talked about too is that, you know, you were really into the fitness for a long time. And I love the idea of it's like a pendulum, you know, first it was party, party, party. Then it was fitness, fitness, fitness. And then now it's more a bit of everything, not saying that you party too hard or anything, but I'm saying like, it seems that you have a balance of all the important elements that make you overall well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I went from, like you said, overly not taking my health as seriously as I should to then overcorrecting that and going so all in on fitness that like I was tracking every single calorie. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it can get toxic. But now I'm much more centered in my approach to health and well-being. And it's interesting that you say this too, because I did fitness competitions and I did 3 different shows and one of them I won. And the one that I won is fascinating because I was at my weakest. And so you see these people on stage and they look incredible. And I did, you know, it was the best physique I've ever had aesthetically. But in terms of actual physical capabilities and strength and mental well-being, emotional well-being, I mean, it's interesting how connected those things are. For anyone who's ever done a bodybuilding prep or any of those fitness competitions, you kind of understand now the correlation between your physical body and your mental and emotional well-being and how tied those are. Because when you're extremely scarce in calories, you end up extremely scarce in your mentality as well.
You know, I think that that's a really good point too, because a lot of people, because I also train people as a personal trainer, but a lot of people, they want to lose weight, so they automatically get rid of all these calories, and it's not always the best way. I'm like, you plateaued? Well, are you eating enough?
Same.
It's not always calories in, calories out, which is just another aspect of what we're talking about. But I'm curious, how hard was it for you to go mentally from, like the best physique you had to maybe not the best physique, but overall well-rounded and healthy and feeling good in your body? Did that mess with you a little bit mentally, or was it kind of like, okay, cool?
No, it did. It messed with me. And of course, right? Because I focus on trying to be at my best. I make a joke. I used to bees don't produce any honey, right? I'm just kidding. But honestly, I'm not at my physical peak in terms of, if you're looking in the narrow lens of aesthetics, and I have this trophy behind me. And if you look at only aesthetics, I'm not at my peak. But that doesn't mean that I'm not holistically at my best. And I think it depends on the frame that you look for. And there's two things that I think is important for me to say here. One is that you can actually only optimize for one thing at a time. And I'll give you an example. Since we're talking wellness, when you go to the gym, you can optimize for energy output. You can optimize for strength training. You can optimize for cardio. You can optimize for mobility and stretching. But you can't optimize for all of them simultaneously. There has to be a pyramid structure. And so I'll give another example that's tangible. If you are a parent and you work from home, and all of a sudden your kid gets injured, all of a sudden you were optimizing for work, and now you have to go optimize for the kid who's injured. And so my point to this is that I used to optimize for aesthetics. When I did men's physique, I used to want to be the greatest natural aesthetic men's physique fitness model in the world. I was a model. I did 40 plus photo shoots. And so, of course, I was optimizing for aesthetics. Now I optimize for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And particularly when it comes to my physique, I optimize for being as capable as I possibly can. And that incorporates a lot of different things. How can you be strong and aesthetic? Now, for those of you who are in the bodybuilding world, you understand this. The more, think about the strong men competitions or strong woman competitions. Usually those physiques don't look very aesthetic. They don't look very good because they are extremely large and usually have a lot of body fat. They're optimizing for strength. They're not optimizing for aesthetics. And then you've got like a model, for example, who optimizes for aesthetics and usually takes a hit on strength. And so it's very difficult to create this chicken soup, so to speak, of a little bit of broth, a little bit of carrots, a little bit of chicken, right amount of each thing. And so I think, for anyone viewing or listening to this, what I would say is, yes, it did mess with me for a time to try to go towards a more holistic approach after being so narrow in the modeling world and the fitness competition world. But I feel like my relationship to my own physique is much more holistic and healthy now. And I know that approach over time actually will end up having me overall better than what that competition ever was in that narrow sort of frame.
I love that. And I think that is so important because a lot of people think that they have to be optimized in absolutely every single thing. And that if it's anything less than 110%, then they've somehow failed without realizing that ultimately, it's not I hate the word balance, but it's harmony. I love the word harmony. When everything's harmonious, that is where it's at. It's not, trying to balance 110% of everything. But what I'm curious about is when you decided to look at yourself and, and treat yourself more holistically, what is one of the major benefits or two that you received either mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually that you couldn't get when you were just optimizing your physique?
Yeah, I think one of them is peace of mind in particular, but also strength. When you optimize for aesthetics, you take big strength hits. And you also, here's another thing too, and this is probably an answer that no one expects, productivity.
Wow.
My productivity has gone way up now that I'm not so calorically scarce.
Wow.
I have clients, and I'm a business coach at this point. So I started fitness coaching, then it was mindset coaching, then it was peak performance coaching. Now it's just business consulting, really. And some of my clients, this woman in particular, multimillionaire, super successful business owner, awesome, awesome, awesome. She wasn't eating enough. She was eating like 1,200 calories.
Yeah.
And she wasn't sleeping well, and it was affecting everything else. So I have the big five is what I call them. And from all of the studying of fitness and competing and coaching and all that, it came down to 5 things. That was it. I want simple, 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 because when you design for simplicity, now you can be consistent. We make fitness so complex that everybody gets overwhelmed and doesn't do it, right? So sleep is number 1. Number 2 is hydration. Number 3 is nutrition. Number 4 is training. And number 5 is mobility. And 6 would be supplementation. But until you do the first 5, don't even worry about that. So what I told her was that your nutrition, they're all connected too. When you eat poorly, you sleep poorly. When you sleep poorly, you end up eating even worse and you don't train. When you don't train, you end up eating worse because you don't want to invest in healthier foods.
Yeah.
And so it's all connected. And then you don't hydrate because you weren't at the gym, and that's where we drink most of our water, right? So they're all connected. And so well-being is a formula, and it's those 5 things. And so from 0 to 10, everyone out there could rate themselves, assess themselves. How well am I sleeping? Quality, uninterrupted REM sleep. 0 to 10. If it's a 6, and then your nutrition's a 5, and your mobility is a 2, and your hydration's a 4, and your training is an 8, let's say, that averages to about like a 6. So your well-being is about at a 6. But here's the rub. Here's the problem. If you're used to being a 3, a 6 will feel great. And you don't know what it's like to be a 10.
Exactly.
And so once you do, though, you'll lock in on it and you won't let yourself slide past that standard. So what happens is it's like the frog in the pot of boiling water. I know it's an overused analogy, but it's so important. When we start getting out of well-being, it's so slow and incremental that we don't notice it. And then our standard, maybe we're living at a 3 and we think that's normal. Whereas a professional athlete who takes really good care of themselves because it's their job to do so, maybe they operate an 8 and you don't know the difference. And so that's where you have to kind of decide to slowly and incrementally improve your well-being over time, knowing that you might not even notice the difference until you look back, a quarter or a half a year or a couple years.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I'm always talking about that. You don't know how heavy the backpack is until you set it down. It's like it becomes your new normal. You don't even, realize. And I always liked, and this is dramatic, but I compare it to an abusive relationship. Now, if a woman, because I'm a woman, if a woman is, in a relationship, if the man cold cocked her right in the face on the first date, do you think there would have been a second one? No, but it works up into something that is a lot more dramatic and scary, to the point where it's kind of like, oh, maybe it's not so bad. And that's kind of how I feel like health is. You just get so used to being a 3 that you don't even remember, or maybe you've never even known what anything higher is. And therefore you have nothing to compare that to and think that this is it. I love that.
That's the dangerous thing too. And I actually like that comparison, because that's how things happen in life, right? It's not catastrophic sudden failures or catastrophic overnight successes. It's all of the little daily things that are either investing in better or not. And I think the other really important thing to mention as well that you already talked about, you said, I like how you mentioned how you don't have to optimize for everything simultaneously and be perfect in everything. And if you're not perfect in everything, then you're failing. I often use this analogy, and hopefully this lands. Michael Jordan never had a perfect basketball game. Never once. Best basketball player to ever live, arguably. Never had a perfect game. Never. He just had better games than the other players. And he had better games than he used to have, right? His games in college were better than his games in high school. And his games in the NBA were better than his games in college. And his games in the championships that he won were better than the ones that he lost. But he never had a perfect game. He never left the game going, that was a perfect basketball game. I completely succeeded on every play. No, it's not real. It's not real. That's not a thing. perfect is silly. Improvement is absolutely everything. Everything.
Well, it's also boring. I mean, people don't even talk about that, how boring it is. Like, I used to work in addiction recovery, and one of the things that people get really addicted to is drama. And it's like all of a sudden you take out the need for trying to find money for drugs, or the need for, hiding from the cops, or all this stuff, and they like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with myself? you know but it gets, perfect is boring, and so why not just focus on one thing at a time and really go for it? Like, it was that saying, it's the master trade, or the master of none. I'm trying, do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Jack of all trades,
And
master of
master
none.
of none. There we go. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I love that. So this isn't a question that I always ask, but it's one that I want to ask you. What are some of the things that you do on a daily basis that are non-negotiable?
Ooh. So on our team at Next Level University, we have a team of 13 people, and we all do what's called peak performance tracking. And it sounds intense, but it's really simple. We have what's called a daily dozen, which
Uh-huh.
is like 4 habits under health, 4 habits under wealth, 4 habits under love.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's usually broken up into morning, afternoon, and evening. All my clients do this as well. So it's actually becoming quite a thing, which is cool. But those are my quote unquote non negotiables, but I don't get 100% every day. So technically, they're not non negotiables. These are the things that I hope to do consistently over time.
Hmm.
Ideally, if I was getting 100% days every day, I would do them every day.
Hmm.
One of my non negotiables that I've done every day for the last 7 years, it's called my morning mindset workout. Swear to God, every single day I wake up in the morning and I have a YouTube playlist. It's public. It's called Alan's Morning Mindset Workout, or Alan's Mindset Workout. And the very first line item on my PPT, my peak performance tracker, is morning mindset workout. Every single day for the last 7 years, I've woken up and listened to one video. He's actually become a client. At the time, I didn't even know him. 7 years ago, I didn't even know him. I asked him to get coffee. I found out our colleges were near each other. We ended up, co-hosting an event together. Now he's actually a client. His name's Eddie Pinero. He has a YouTube channel called Your World Within.
Hmm.
His very first video was called Ode to Excellence. And I've listened to this video, swear to you, every single day for 7 years.
Wow.
And that's one of my non-negotiables. I do not ever miss on that. I also have, because this is a wellness show, I have this necklace or chain, whatever you want to call it, around my neck. It's got this True North.
Oh,
And
wow.
once a day, I always grab this and I say my purpose prayer. I have a purpose prayer that I've been quoting also for 7 years, every single day. And it's my own prayer. And I've shared it publicly before. For a long time, I refused to, and eventually I did. But I also quote that every single day. I have it memorized. Sometimes I used to write it every day. I don't do that anymore. Sometimes I say it out loud. I usually just say it to myself.
Hmm.
But those are a couple of my non-negotiables.
I think that that's really important because, well, I love the distinction between the list of the dozen and then the non-negotiables, because 12 things every single day is a lot to strive for. And, it's like we are always working against that resistance in our brain. But I love that there are certain things. And I noticed that you start with your mind first. And a lot of people don't realize that absolutely everything that exists in this world started in energy form first. And what is
Mm-hmm.
energy? Like, thoughts are energy,
Mm-hmm.
emotions are energy. So for you to work on that part first makes it easier for you to manifest things in the physical realm, which I just love, because if your mind's not right, think about it. Think, if your mind's not right, what are you going to see? Nothing but negative.
100%.
No, I love
100%.
that. I love that you do that. And your partner was saying, I think was it you who came up with the dozen, or was it the mindset, the morning mindset? Because I know he told me something about one of those. He gave you credit for, when he was on the show.
Both of those.
Both of
Both of
them.
those, I
Yay.
think. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate him giving me credit. He's awesome. He does more habits per day than anyone I've ever met, though. He does 23 a day and he never misses. It's
Oh
wild.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's wild. He's the most
I just
consistent
got those
human I've ever met in
goosebumps
my
like,
life.
oh.
Yeah. 23 positive habits per day every day, and he never misses. It's genuinely wild. I've never seen anything like it.
That's amazing. And, bringing it back to that, because I know a lot of people, because I felt it in myself, my ego popping up thinking, oh, I got to compete with that somehow. You got to do the best you, like you mentioned. What works for
He did
you.
not
And
start there.
yeah,
He did not start there.
exactly. And, it's another thing with the pendulum is if you go from 0 to 60 and you go swinging completely the other way, the odds of you continuing all these habits, become about 0. I mean, some people are freaks and they can do it, but most people can't. So take your time, people, take your time.
We actually have an app that we're creating, and it starts out with 3, then 6, then 9, then 12, then 15. And then it's a paid app that eventually you can pay to do more. But it's just a simple habit tracker. And Kevin started with 5, and he was struggling to do 5. I remember that. That was like 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And now he's doing 23 every single day, but he didn't start there. No one starts there.
No, that's dedication, and that's putting yourself first. And that's not a selfish thing, because if you're not right, how are you going to be able to be well for everyone else? So I think that that's always really important to mention. But I'm curious too, because this is, a show about health and wellness, and you used to be in, the fitness world more so. What does your fitness routine look like now? Does it change on a regular basis, or did it change because of COVID?
So during COVID, the gyms closed. That was really hard for me. It's interesting too. You don't always realize how much you value something until it gets taken away. And that's such an unfortunate human nature thing. I try really hard to do that in my consciousness ahead of time. With my girlfriend, for example, it's like, don't you dare forget how sucky it was in past relationships before her. Like, stay grateful, stay grateful. Because what we appreciate, we will invest in, and what we invest in will grow. But to answer your original question about the fitness routine, when COVID, the gyms closed, I actually ended up crying on my way to the gym when they finally opened up. That's how much I missed fitness. That's how much weight training in particular, everybody has their flavor of exercise. For me, weight training in particular has become such a through line for my well-being. Such a through line. And so what does my routine look like today? I train once a day. Now, let me be transparent. Not always every single day. On average, it's 7 days a week, but sometimes it's 6. So like last night, for example, I missed a workout. My partner and I were up late filling our latest group in group coaching. But anyways, I stayed up till 2 a.m. That was a mistake. So my routine now, though, is ideally, I'll give you the ideal and then I'll give you the practical. The ideal is 35 minutes of weight training with 10 minutes warm up on the treadmill, and then at least 15 minutes foam rolling or long form stretching at the end. Now I'll give you the practical. The practical is at least one of those 3 gets done. Okay,
I like
at
it.
least one of those 3 gets done. Sometimes 2 out of 3, occasionally 3 out of 3. But I like to train at least 35 minutes of weights, in particular weights. And my regimen is simple, so it's push, pull, legs. Push is chest, triceps, and shoulders. Pull is back, biceps, and traps. And then legs are obviously calves, hamstrings, quads, and glutes. And it just goes push, pull, legs, push, pull, legs, push, pull, legs. So every single time has at least 48 hours of recovery for those muscle groups. And that's what I rinse and repeat. I've been running that program for I'm going to say 3 or 4 years now or so. I feel good. I feel really good. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, on that note, it is time for us to go to commercial. So we'll be back in just a minute, okay?
Perfect.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm having a blast learning and listening and growing as a person. But as I mentioned, we do need to go to commercial. But before we go, I want to say hello to everybody who's watching us live. You are always appreciated, and we'll be right back after these messages. Are you someone who is struggling to move forward because you suffered a loss? Maybe you're even finding it difficult to complete the most basic tasks. Are you looking for a way to start enjoying life again without feeling guilty or the resistance to do so? Spiritual life coach Sarah Stockham saw a need for people who haven't learned how to grieve without putting their entire lives on pause. And so she created a program that solves this issue called Choosing Life Right Now. This program is simple and you can do it on your own. If you are ready to learn how to feel your grief while still being able to smile, to honor the sacredness of what took place as a loss, and yet still continue to live with joy, and if you'd like to take care of your whole being with grace and love, then I'd like to invite you to experience her new program called Choosing Life Right Now. Sarah is currently offering her program for the promotional price of $77, but it won't stay at this price for long. To learn more, check out her website. The address is on the screen.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And today's special guest is Alan Lazaros. Let's bring him back on. Oh, he's drinking. There we go. Ah. I was like, uh-oh. I was already pressing the button. Live TV. What are you going to do? But anyway, we've been dancing around this issue a little tiny bit, but let's talk about your podcast. It's Next Level University. Would you tell the audience a bit about it?
Yeah, thank you. So Next Level University, the thing that I'm more proud of than anything else, other than my intimate relationship, actually. When I said that, I was immediately, my relationship, number one. Number two is Next Level University. And I remember my girlfriend, I was 500 episodes in, and this was back when we were the Hyperconscious podcast. We've since rebranded. She asked me, what are you most proud of? I said, we have 500 episodes out there for anyone who has an internet connection, completely free, where every single episode is helping you become a better person.
Wow.
Physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development, self-improvement. If you improve by 0.1% per day for an entire year, you end up 37 times better by the end of the year. And then if you do it for another year, you're 37 times better than that.
Wow.
1%, not 0.1%. I'm sorry, 1%. So if you can get 1% better per day, every day for a year, you end up 37 times better at the end of the year. That's what I think matters. We all have goals, we have dreams, we have aspirations, but if we understood the compound effect of these tiny improvements over time, then we would really achieve a lot more and be more fulfilled. And so that's what the whole podcast is built around. The whole podcast is built around this idea, this simple idea that we want to put self-improvement in your pocket every single day from anywhere on the planet, completely free. We do an episode every day. It's basically Next Level University. Level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. Because Kevin and I looked at it, right? Health, wealth, and love. Okay, health is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. That's what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
Wealth is how are you making your money? In other words, do you actually love what you do? Not always, but for the most part. Okay? How much are you making? Is that increasing or decreasing over time? And at what rate? And then where are you investing your capital? Or where are you investing your money? And not just investments, but I mean, like, are you actually buying things that actually have real value to you in your real life type of thing? And then love, which is your intimate relationship first, immediate family, business partners, friends, colleagues, mentors, mentees, family, all that kind of thing. And so health, wealth, and love. Simple, simple, simple. If you improve by 1% in each of those each day, which is exactly what Next Level University is designed around, your whole life will be 10 times better than you could have even imagined if you can stick with it for the long run.
I like the idea too of the 1% because it's the things that you do on a consistent basis. Also, these habits that we're talking about as well that make a huge difference rather than, say, going to the gym and working out for 4 hours one time a week. It's not going to have the same effect as like 30 minutes every day. People completely underestimate how much time they have and how much they can accomplish in a short amount of time. So I love that you guys, have different, you incorporate everything is what I'm trying to say.
I appreciate that. The holistic self-improvement thing is very unique, believe it or not, to the industry. We didn't know that at first, but we looked at the industry, self-improvement in general. And the other thing that I found fascinating in the fitness industry, I was in the fitness industry for a long time, probably like 4 years. And then I went into the self-improvement industry. And I realized, okay, the fitness industry definitely has a lot of self-improvement, but there's some big gaps. Mm-hmm. And then I went into the personal development industry, and I was like, there's not as much fitness over here.
Yeah.
I'm like surprised at how little fitness is over it. And so Kevin and I were bodybuilders, and, we take fitness very, very seriously and wellness. And we're like, you know what, we're going to do holistic. Now everyone's like, you got a niche. And it's true. I understand. Mm-hmm. But what if we're the only podcast who actually does have holistic self-improvement? And so some podcasts are about wealth, some podcasts are about marketing, some podcasts are about fitness, some podcasts are about yoga and mobility, some are about wealth creation, and some are about relationships. My girlfriend and I are starting one of those in January 2022. But none of them are about holistic self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to be the first. And I understand why that it's harder to market that. It's harder to niche that, but that's what we're doing.
It definitely is, because it's kind of like, throwing throwing it out in the wind, but it really is true because you need all of it. And, I even think that money's part of that too, because think about if you don't have money, how much stress are you under?
So much.
People underestimate the importance of money. I can't remember who said it, but it was like, money's not important next to breathing. It's, like the next, I always mess things up, but basically the point is that next to breathing, it's just about as important. So,
yeah, I know what quote you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
It's like
very
not
not eloquently.
Money's not important, but it is right up there with breathing or something like that.
It's something like that. Yeah, you did it much better. So, so you said it's every day, and how long is it?
The podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we launch one episode per day, every day at noon, and they vary. So we have Monday through Sunday. Monday is a motivational Monday. That's like 5 to 10 minutes. Tuesday, we do a live podcast that gets repurposed. That's 40 minutes. It's like a keynote style.
Yeah.
Wednesday, we do what's called a small talks, which is like 15 to 20 minutes. Thursday, we do a 20-minute Q&A that was on the live podcast, and we repurpose that. So it's 20 minutes Q&A where the audience asks questions. Friday, we do Scratching the Surface, which is like 25 to 30 minutes, a little bit longer form. Every Saturday, we do a Strategy Saturday, which is like 7 minutes, and that's basically based on a framework, sort of like the sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility thing. And then every Sunday, we have a guest. Every Sunday, we have a guest, and it used to be an hour long. Now it's a half an hour because our schedules are getting insane.
You're too busy coaching.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a good thing. And then also, I want to make sure we pop this up here too, so people can find out more about you. I'm assuming too that you have inspirational things and, things that'll feed your mind, as well as maybe some tips, things like that on your Instagram.
For sure. It very much mirrors who I am. I think better than it ever has. I'm still always trying to hone the art of how to authentically market yourself on the digital footprint. That's a whole thing, as I know you know. But yeah, health, wealth, and love, all things self-improvement. I realize this now. My girlfriend asked me, I'm 33, and she's like, well, what are you going to do differently in your 33rd year? And I sort of reread the book of my life, and I have a good memory, and I'm like, I'm not going to go outside of alignment anymore, and for anyone or anything.
Wow.
And it's like a bold statement, I know. But
that is.
yeah, and I used to go outside of alignment far too often with persons, places, things, and ideas that, quite frankly, in hindsight, are not aligned. And so here's what's aligned for me. Maximizing my potential and helping others do the same. That's my calling. And that's what the Instagram page will be about. Because that's what I'm about. And rather than this being about me, what I would do is I would have your viewers contemplate what their calling is. And this is a wellness show, and I think one of the things that's really important is I think fulfillment is the most important thing. And to tie this back to the optimization conversation of you can only really optimize for one thing at a time. So when you go to the gym, yeah, you can get a cardio workout, but if you're optimizing for strength, you're going to get cardio during weight training.
Yep.
So in life, what are we optimized for? I think we should be optimizing for fulfillment. Prior to my car accident at 26, I optimized for pleasure without knowing it. I had a belief, this pleasure-centered paradigm that I adopted from my environment that was basically life is supposed to be fun. Life is supposed to be about barbecues and parties and having fun and fun, unique experiences. I don't believe that anymore. I think that's shallow thinking. I think more accurate thinking in hindsight is that life is about fulfillment, and fulfillment is the soul's recognition of alignment with its highest calling. And that's basically a really fancy way to say you have to maximize your own unique potential and contribution. So why do we grow? So that we can contribute more. And if you focus on fulfillment more than pleasure, donuts are pleasurable. They're never going to fulfill you.
No.
No matter how many you eat. I've tried, trust me. No, I'm kidding. But doing an intense workout that's really challenging, but that is aligned for you, it is fulfilling. So I think we need to choose fulfillment over pleasure. That doesn't mean you can't have some pleasure along the way. It just means fulfillment needs to be what you optimize for. And that's really the main sort of message that I try to get across on my Instagram.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up because, using like the donut example, a lot of us, it's especially in America, because I've lived outside of the United States quite a bit as an adult. And, we have a different mentality here. And it's always about, it's kind of bred into us that we're supposed to feel secure. We're supposed to feel safe, and we're supposed to have all this pleasure. But ultimately, that's what keeps us wanting and searching for more, like it's that fulfillment thing that you're talking about. You can eat a couple of donuts and you'll feel, great. But then the next time you'll need 3, and the time after that you'll need 4, and then soon you're just sick, and then it doesn't work anymore, and now you're onto something else. Whereas, like you said, the workout, for example, it might not be traditionally fun, but ultimately you're feeling better. You're feeling better in your skin. You're making better, your choices for yourself. You can actually go do things that are living instead of being a couch potato. Not that there's anything wrong with, watching a TV show, since this is one, but
if you're on the couch, don't be offended.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between watching 10 hours of Netflix and, like a half-hour show, for example.
Of course.
No, I love that you brought that up. And something else that I wanted to touch on is, you talked about your relationship, and something that you said that, is absolutely worth noting is that, you keep in mind how grateful you are, and that you have to remind yourself, because I think a lot of people, and I was so guilty of this for the longest time, truly believe that just because I want something means that that's enough. Or, or just like, thinking I want it and it's supposed to be super easy after that, and it takes absolutely zero effort on my part. It's not how it works. You literally have to keep conditioning your brain to keep doing and giving you what you want, because we get stuck sometimes in our weird little thoughts. And I just love that you mentioned that you remain grateful, and it's like an active thing for you.
Oh, that's one of my most important things that I didn't realize that I was doing this so often. I recently was told by a close friend of mine Kevin, he wouldn't mind me saying this. He said, Alan, you have to understand what makes you different. And he said that people don't contemplate like you do.
Yeah.
And what he was basically trying to get me to understand. So for me, you don't know the value of something until you take it out.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, we have a 13-person team. I contemplate, what if we took this person out?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen? Oh, wow, that person's more valuable than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I contemplate the alternatives. And that's how you get your brain to stay grateful. And it's also how you realize what isn't actually that valuable.
Yeah.
So let's say back when I used to drink often, okay? I struggled with drinking too much and too often. And it took me a long time. It took me like 5 years to quit drinking. I'm coming up on 3 years sober. And it wasn't this horrible, like, oh my God, drink every day, ruin his life thing. No, it was definitely something that I felt a little less control over than I wish that I had. And it's something that if I took it out, I bet you my life would be better.
Yeah.
And my intuition told me, like, you got to get rid of this. Get rid of this thing. You don't need this. This is no longer serving you and you know it. Why do you keep doing it? Right? We've all been there. And so the important thing to stay grateful is more than just gratitude, because anyone can write down what they're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
What's more important than that, I've found in my quote unquote old age at 33, what I found is that you have to contemplate the alternative. I constantly look back to my past intimate relationships to remind myself of how much I've grown, to remind myself of what I do have. Because we bought our first home together and it's gorgeous here and this is so much better than any living environment I've ever been in. And I like to remember, like, oh yeah, that used to really suck. You know? Because it's important for me to make sure that I value this and I don't take it for granted, because we all have what's called the Law of Familiarity. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in great shape, you have to remember what it was like to not be in great shape in order to keep valuing it. When you're wealthy and things are going unbelievably well and you have listeners all over the world, you have to remember what it was like to, your first studio was in your sister's old bedroom, and then your second studio was in your mother's basement, right? And you only got 1,000 listens the entire first year, which now you get daily. And yes, I'm talking about me. But we were broke, like super unsuccessful entrepreneurs for too many years. But I never will forget that. I will never forget that. I have reverence for that. And now, we just surpassed the $300,000 mark, and, we're projected to surpass the $1 million mark by the end of 2022. And it's all
Yay.
awesome. And I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. But I will never forget what it was like to be like landscaping on the side with like a master's degree just to make sure we can get by, because I refuse to go back to corporate. Like I have reverence for that. So to bring this down to earth for everybody, contemplate the alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Contemplate, what would it be like if I didn't have this friend? Now you know the real value of the friendship. And by the way, if things would be better, now you know it's a toxic relationship. Right?
Exactly. Well, I like how you look at it from both sides too, because like you said, maybe something that you thought was important really isn't, or it no longer serves you. And something that my friend said, and I love this so much, and I think that this applies to a lot of people as well, is that just because something is good doesn't mean it's good for you. And something that has served you doesn't mean it serves the best version of you. So, it doesn't make it bad, or a person bad, or even exes, for example, doesn't mean necessarily that it's just that you're not that person anymore. It's no longer good for you. And it doesn't have to be bad, but you need more, or you need different. And that's okay.
That is okay.
Yeah.
I often talk about, my girlfriend created this framework of old world, lonely land, and new world. And every movie is based on this framework. It's the main characters in the old world. The life gets shaken up by some sort of tragedy. And then a guide comes in and says, hey, I can help you. The hero doesn't answer the call.
Yeah.
And the hero eventually does answer the call because the tragedy gets too great. And then eventually it's like, it feels so challenging, and that's what we call lonely land. It's so challenging because you're trying to leave the old world because you no longer fit there, but you totally don't fit yet in this new one yet either, right? And so it's this brutal like dichotomy of identity crises, and eventually you find a guide. The guide helps you, and you break through, and now you're this new person in this new world. And in every movie, whether it's The Lion King or Titanic or whatever, it's always that same narrative because that's the human condition. And so to your point, the past relationships, the past friendships, the past versions of you, they weren't necessarily bad. They served their purpose, but maybe we overstayed. I often say, don't overcook the turkey. Right? It's done after the first hour. Don't stay for 4 more hours because it's going to end up black and burnt. And I've overcooked the turkey on too many bad habits and too many relationships that clearly were not serving me. And that's really what I'm doing now in 33 is like, I'm not going to overcook the turkey anymore. I'm going to recognize, okay, it's time to move on. It's time to evolve. And I think I've gotten better at that, but I think that's a lifelong journey as well.
I love that. Don't overcook the turkey.
Don't overcook the turkey.
Yeah, it's
Everybody's
true.
overcooked the turkey before.
Well,
You know
I mean,
it, right?
yeah, exactly. That was me. Especially like for
Same.
me, it was drinking. I was like you. I had an issue with, drinking. I was never like an everyday drinker or anything like that, but it was too much and it was bad for me. And it, like, my intuition kept saying, yeah, and even my body was like, no, why are you doing this to me? But the point was
Same.
that, I kept doing it and I kept doing it. It was kind of, there's a saying in addiction. It's like you're chasing the dragon. And what they mean is that you're looking for that first experience that you had. So you keep going back to the same. It's like that book. I don't know if you've ever read it. Where's My Cheese or Where's the Cheese?
Yes, I have. Yep,
You keep doing the same thing, even though you know that it doesn't work for you any longer, hoping that this time it will. It'll go back the way it was. So
yeah, you'd think the other 3,000 times would have indicated it's not going to work.
No, you're not the same anymore, so it's not going to work the same anymore.
This will be a funny joke I just want to share real quick. I heard a comedian, his name's Ron White, he said, yeah, my friend was like, you're never going to find the answers to your problems in the bottom of that bottle. And he's like, I know. That's why I'm going to buy another one. It's like, no, that's terrible. He's like, I knew this was a no answer dud when the moment I set eyes on it. No, but for anyone who's struggled with addiction ever, it's so fascinating because when you really look at the data and you look at your past, it's like, okay, this is no longer actually serving a purpose. And that admittance factor. And that's the first step in AA, right? And I'm not necessarily for or against AA, but that admittance factor of I have a problem that I want to change and taking responsibility for those choices. That's how you evolve. And if I could leave your viewers with anything, it's that. It's personal responsibility for your choices. And mine too. We are culpable. It is our life. And everything we say, think, do, feel, and believe is a choice, as long as you live in a free country. And if you make better choices, your life will be better. And I'm certain of.
And, to add on that too, is a lot of people are probably like, well, I didn't choose this or I didn't choose that, fill in the blank, but you get to choose how you're going to respond. You get to choose how you're going to think about things. And, it's always a choice. And we get to make up a story anyway. So why don't you make something up that is less negative?
That's for sure.
We are meaning-making machines.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So for somebody that, you know what I really want to touch on? We don't have a lot of time, but I really wanted to go back to the whole sleep thing because that is something that I wanted. I got sidetracked. I always do. But you talked about the importance of sleep. And there's so many people out there that will say something to the effect of, I'll sleep when I die. And my thing that I always respond is, okay, well, you're going to get that opportunity a lot quicker than you expected if you don't choose to sleep. But why does sleeping help? Like, what does it help with?
Everything. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I'll sleep when I die, worst mentality ever.
Yep.
Yeah. It's time to do some research. So sleep there's a very, very small, and I've done deep dives into the research of all this. There's a very, very, very small percentage of people that actually don't need a lot of sleep. And to assume that you're in that percentage is either naive and or you really are, and that you won the lottery on that. But what I will say is this. I bought my girlfriend a leadership series for Christmas, and it was 5 different books, and one of them was a memory book. And she struggled and had memory challenges for a long time, and now she's sleeping so well. And I've been helping her protect her sleep, and we have, I mean, we literally have switching lights on to red lights, and then we have like all the lights are off in the evening. Like we put we do all the sleep hygiene things, and her memory's improved drastically. Now, and honestly, neuroplasticity, you got to study it, and chemical, functional, and structural changes in the brain are happening 24/7, 365. And here's the one thing that I will give your viewers on sleep. When I learned this, it changed the game for me. We have a lymphatic system. If I jump up and down, the bone cells and muscle cells and fat cells and kidney cells and liver cells and all those cells have waste. The cells are working and they have waste. The lymphatic system is it flushes the waste. The brain doesn't have that. The brain doesn't have that. When you're in REM sleep, your cerebral fluid flushes the waste. So if you don't get good, consistent REM sleep, the waste turns into plaque. Now, these are not the scientific terms, but picture that. There's a direct link now in the research between Alzheimer's and poor sleep.
Wow.
It's just direct link. There's a bunch of books on this. There's a bunch of research. If you think you'll sleep when you die, you are leaving massive well-being on the table. I mean, sleep is the first of the pillars on purpose. And even last night I was up till 1:40 a.m. We were filling our group coaching, and that's very rare for me. And I purposely, literally, last night I could read you the text. I had 3 calls with my team. I canceled 3 calls. I said, I was up late. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to lose momentum. I don't like to skip calls, but I have to sleep in tomorrow. And that's because I don't sleep because I'm lazy. I sleep because I want to perform optimally, and sleep is absolutely critical.
And also, people underestimate the idea too. If, you're struggling with your thoughts, and if you can go to sleep, then it gives your brain a chance to reset those thoughts, and you don't have to go, in that problem mode, because, you can't find a solution if you're too busy worrying about the problem. So that's another benefit of sleep too.
My camera just switched. I'm going to switch to this one. Sorry, my camera just died on me. This is what we're gonna have to switch over to this, if that's okay. Almost made it. We almost made it.
I know. I was like, wait a second.
Is he still there?
I know. Uh-oh, I can hear him. Well, we are actually almost out of time. We have a little under 2 minutes left. So I'm just curious, what kind of final thoughts or what kind of wisdom would you like to leave with the audience?
So the best advice I ever got was when I was 7 years old. When my father passed away at 28, my mom was 30, and she had 2 kids. She had a 6-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. I was the 2.5-year-old, and she didn't feel like she had a lot of choices. She was the 3rd child, and her older sister's 17 years older than her. So her parents were kind of already had their kids, and they didn't expect to have my mom's. They had her when they were in their mid-40s, and they got married, I think, when they were like 16 or something like that. So they kind of let my mom do her own thing, and they didn't really tell my mom to focus on academics. They didn't tell my mom about goals and dreams. They didn't tell my mom to like do good in school and you'll have opportunities and choices. And so my mom, of course, wanted to learn from that. And when my father passed away, she was a stay-at-home mom. She had a secretarial degree, but with the rise of computers, that wasn't as useful, and she didn't have a lot of choices. She at least didn't feel like she had a lot of choices. So she wanted to make sure that I didn't make that mistake. And so she sat me down at 7 years old. I'll never forget this. She said, Alan, you can be a CEO or you can be a farmer. I'm going to love you either way. But if you aim high and you decide to be a CEO, you can wake up one day and just decide to be a farmer, but it doesn't work the other way around. So she said, Alan, you have to aim high and you'll have choices. And my God, I took that to heart. I mean, Steve Jobs is behind me. I wanted to be a Fortune 50 CEO. I got straight A's in high school, blah, 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 blah. Went to one of the top technical schools in the world, all thanks to that lesson of aim high and you'll have choices, because my mom didn't feel like she had any choices. And so, yes, I feel blessed. and I want to give that lesson to all of your viewers, which is this. Anyone who's told you having small goals is the way is incorrect in my opinion. And I'm not just saying this, but all the science I've studied. Even aiming small is even bad for your biology. Playing small is even bad for it's bad for your well-being. It's bad for your emotional development. It's bad for your spiritual development. And just think about it this way. Think about someone you know who's hopeless and doesn't feel like they have a bright future. Of course they're going to be depressed.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a lot of causes of depression, but nihilism is not okay. And my point is this. You are capable. You can aim higher, and you can start with incremental improvements daily. And when you do that, I promise you, you will wake up. Maybe it's 3 months from now, maybe it's 6 months from now, maybe it's 6 years from now, but you'll be like, holy crap, my life is so much better, assuming you're contemplating what your life used to be like.
I love that. On that note, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today, Alan. It has been a pleasure to get to know you better, and hopefully you'll be back again soon.
I would love that, Julie. Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate your vulnerability and honesty regarding your audience and what you're doing and well-being and about your past and who you are now. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You as well.
Well, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you soon.